You're watching this video through a global network that connects over 5 billion people. But here's the twist. The man who made this all possible isn't the one you think. Most people credit names like Tim Berners-Lee or Vint Cerf. They were important, no doubt. But the real father of the internet? He never got the fame, never saw headlines. In fact, when he first proposed the idea of a global, decentralized communication system, they laughed at him. Today, every phone call, every email, every Google search runs on the exact method he invented. His name was Paul Baran, and this is the story of how the internet was born and how its true inventor was almost erased from history. Today, the internet is woven into nearly every part of our lives. It's how we communicate, shop, learn, and even date. But at its core, the internet is a massive network. Billions of devices connected through invisible highways of data, constantly sending and receiving information at lightning speed. When you stream a movie, check your email, or scroll through social media, that data travels in tiny packets across this global web of servers and routers. And those packets don't follow one straight line. They bounce around the globe through the fastest available paths, all in milliseconds. Most people recognize Tim Berners-Lee as the man who invented the World Wide Web, the part of the internet we interact with through browsers. Others know Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn, the engineers who developed TCP/IP, the communication protocol that made it all possible. But here's the twist. Decades before any of them, one man had already laid the groundwork, imagining a decentralized communication system, and even building a prototype of what we now call the internet. And almost no one knows his name. Long before the internet became a household name, a quiet but brilliant engineer named Paul Baran was already thinking decades ahead. Born in Poland in 1926 and raised in the United States, Baran was a gifted electrical engineer. In the late 1950s, during the height of the Cold War, he worked at the RAND Corporation, a research think tank closely tied to US national security. At the time, the biggest fear wasn't a cyber attack, it was nuclear war. The US government needed a communication system that could survive a direct nuclear strike. Baran had an idea that sounded radical. Instead of relying on one central hub, what if information could travel through a decentralized network with no single point of failure? This is where Baran introduced a revolutionary idea: packet switching. Instead of sending entire messages through one fixed path, like a phone call, packet switching breaks data into smaller chunks. Each packet travels separately across the network and is reassembled at the destination. If one route fails, the packets find another way, making the system incredibly resilient. Sound familiar? Today, packet switching is the backbone of the internet. Every message, email, video, and tweet you send travels this way, thanks to Paul Baran's vision. But at the time, his idea was dismissed as too complicated and unnecessary. Still, Baran believed in the future he saw, even if no one else did. With a clear blueprint in hand, Paul Baran took his revolutionary idea to AT&T, the telecommunications giant of the era. He believed they could help bring his vision to life, a resilient, decentralized communication system that could withstand even a nuclear attack. But instead of support, Baran was met with laughter. AT&T's engineers dismissed the concept of packet switching as too radical and unrealistic. They were deeply invested in circuit switching, the old-school method where a dedicated line is used for the duration of a call. The idea of breaking messages into tiny packets and sending them on different paths, it was just too weird, too risky, and frankly, too futuristic for them to take seriously. Frustrated but undeterred, Baran published his research and made it public. He hoped that if one door was closed, others might open. Across the Atlantic, British computer scientist Donald Davies independently came up with a similar packet-based system in the 1960s. And later, in the 1970s, Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn would build on these ideas to create TCP/IP, the very protocol that powers today's internet. By the time the internet truly began to rise in the 1980s and 90s, Baran had already moved on to other ventures in the tech world. He never became a household name, nor did he seek to. In interviews, when asked how he felt about being left out of the spotlight, his response was telling: "It doesn't matter who gets the credit, as long as the job gets done." Baran wasn't chasing fame. He was building a future, even if it took the world decades to realize it. Paul Baran wasn't just thinking ahead, he was predicting the digital age decades before it happened. In memos written as early as 1962, Baran described a world where digital messages could be sent over phone lines, where communication would continue even after a disaster, and where people could share data across a global network. He called it a distributed communications system. Today we just call it the Internet. One memo stated, if one node is destroyed, the message can be rerouted through others. The system must not have a central control point. Sound familiar? That's basically how the Internet works today. Decentralized, resilient, and lightning fast. And remember, Baran wrote this before personal computers even existed, and long before most people had even heard the word digital. Then, in 1969, something happened that finally brought his vision to life. ARPANET. Funded by the US Department of Defense, ARPANET became the first functioning packet switch network, and it directly used the concepts Baran had published years earlier. Baran wasn't involved in building ARPANET, but his fingerprints were all over it. His ideas, once dismissed as unrealistic, became the foundation for a revolution that would change the world. He saw the Internet coming. He saw us coming. So, how did someone so pivotal, so visionary, get left out of the history books? For starters, Paul Baran wasn't part of ARPANET. While his ideas directly influenced it, he didn't work on the project. That meant no government contract, no official credit, and no spotlight when ARPANET became the backbone of the modern Internet. Instead, Baran worked for the RAND Corporation, a private think tank. He wasn't tied to a prestigious university lab or Silicon Valley startup. In the academic world, that matters a lot. When recognition is passed around, it often stays within institutions with the biggest voices. Then there was AT&T's early rejection of his idea. They not only laughed him off, they actively blocked his concept from being explored further within the traditional telecom world. That roadblock didn't just delay innovation, it helped bury Baran's role in the story. By the time the Internet went mainstream in the 1990s, the media was laser-focused on the World Wide Web, the surface-level browser experience built by Tim Berners-Lee, not the invisible data highways underneath, powered by packet switching. And so, in the mix of academic politics, corporate rejection, and the media's obsession with flashier tech, Baran's name quietly faded from public memory. Yet behind nearly every message sent online today, his fingerprints remain. In the final chapters of his life, Paul Baran finally began to receive the recognition he deserved. Though decades too late, in the early 2000s, organizations like the IEE and respected tech historians started calling him what he had always been, a founding father of the Internet. They acknowledged that packet switching, once dismissed and ignored, had become the foundation of our digital world. Today, Baran's concept lives inside every phone, every router, every Wi-Fi signal, and every app we tap. Every second, billions of packets zigzag across the globe, following the blueprint he laid out in the 1960s. Engineers and Internet pioneers now openly credit him. One network scientist famously said, "Without Paul Baran, there would be no Internet." Period. But Baran never let bitterness cloud his vision. He stayed humble until the end, even joking in one interview, "I thought it was a good idea. I'm just glad the world eventually caught on." Paul Baran passed away in 2011, quietly, much like the life he led. But every message you send, every video you stream, every moment you're connected is part of his legacy. He didn't ask for fame, he just built the future. While others stood in the spotlight, Paul Baran quietly built the stage. He didn't chase headlines. He didn't market himself as a genius. He simply saw a better way for humanity to stay connected, and made it real, without applause, without credit. And yet, here we are, living in the world he imagined. Baran's story is a powerful reminder that history doesn't always honor the right names. Sometimes the most important builders, the ones who shape the foundation of our modern lives, are the ones we never hear about. Innovation isn't just about who goes viral or who gets the patent. It's about ideas that outlive their inventors, quiet revolutions that echo across generations. So, if you believe Paul Baran deserves more recognition, like this video. And if you know someone else who was forgotten by history, Drop their name in the comments, because sometimes the best way to honor the past is to make sure it's remembered.